right, welcome to the first episode of Concept Spotlight. I'm Chris from Icethetics.com. In this series, I'll be talking with designers who have appeared on the Concept Showcase. But before I introduce my first guest, I want to remind you that you can find new hockey concepts posted every day at Icethetics.com/concepts. Also, if you're enjoying this channel, take a second to subscribe and be sure to like these videos. It'll help me continue to keep producing them. Now let's meet our first concept artist. He's a familiar name to longtime readers. He's done work for EA's NHL video game series and is currently a graphic designer for the Buffalo Sabres. This is Dylan Nowak. Welcome, Dylan.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me, Chris.
Happy to have you. I'm really excited to get to meet some of you guys actually, and talk to you. I got a chance to talk to Matt McElroy in the first episode of Identity. I know you guys are friends, and you have kind of come up together and have very similar, I think, in my mind, design styles. So it's cool to talk to you. In this series, I really want to talk about your concept work, but we'll get into obviously more of your professional work as well. Back in 2013, I think is around when you started submitting to Icethetics. And one of the early concepts that kind of caught my eye that I wanted to go back to was this Seattle Metropolitans design, which is funny because now all these years later, Seattle is joining the NHL after all.
Yeah, so I think I should get a little bit of a royalty for that. I mean, I basically kickstarted everything for them, I suppose. What's really pretty fond in my heart about this concept is it was probably the first real logo I really spent time in any type of computer program. We used Paint years back, and I would just switch the colors of logos and call them my own. But this was the first concept that it was in Photoshop, so it wasn't even a real vector logo, but it was something I spent days on in Photoshop, just tweaking and going through and progressing. And it was something at the time I was just incredibly proud of, and it's still it holds dear to my heart, this concept for that reason. So to get it on Icethetics, and I think you may have to correct me, this was the first one that was posted to Icethetics?
I'm not sure it was the first one, but I know it was really early on.
Yeah, it was definitely early on, and to make it on Icethetics with this one, for the week, I was just talking about it in my family, and they had no clue what I was talking about, but I was like, I made it. I made the big time.
Another series of concepts I wanted to show was from about 2014 to 15, where you did a handful of different designs for the Carolina Hurricanes, all a little bit different. A couple of them are a little out there, but they really, I feel like, show a progression of your skill level and your talent. You want to talk about those?
Yeah, for sure. So the first one, that's when I was still using Photoshop for my jersey templates, which, not saying anything negative about that, but as we progressed to the middle and the last one, that's when I started actually using Adobe Illustrator a lot more. So getting a lot more cleaner just shapes and just a cleaner look overall. But that first one in Photoshop is when I remember that was a series I was doing where I was finally really starting to take every team and just trying to do something really unique with a third jersey, just something that kind of never been seen before, just having a lot of fun with it. So that was the first time, I think, in my whole design career where I kind of threw out the stigma of I need to make something that looks good and just wanted to have fun. So that's what I was doing in that one, and it really opened a whole new door for me as a designer. I believe the second one is when they just released their new it was the design before the Adidas that came out. So it was the really classic, basic striping. And I just kind of wanted to tweak it a little more to give it a little more style to it. Cause I think with the Hurricanes logo, to have a traditional style jersey was ridiculous to me. So with a team like that and a logo like that, you need to have some character, have some fun. And that's when the last one is, I kind of looked back to the original first one I did, and I knew okay, let's go a little more. Let's take it to the next level. Let's make it more Hurricanes. Let's have more fun with it. And obviously with a little bit more experience and having fun in an Illustrator, a little more dynamic template as well, just enhanced it a little bit more, gave it its own life. And I think even after that, I took that template for other things, and I was like, I love this so much. So I used it for kind of tweaked it a little bit for other teams as well. So I still love that design, and I would love for something like that to be used someday. Just it's fun, it's out there, a little crazy. Most people might not like it, but I don't know. It holds dear to my heart as well.
But on the subject of being a little out there, I want to skip ahead to kind of 2015-16, where you did a handful of Buffalo Sabres. As we can see, I think that just might be your favorite team if we look at your background there.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
So let's take a look at that. First, the gray sort of slug era design. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the slug. I get in a lot of battles about the slug. I have friends that love it, and as a Sabres fan, it's a great era of Sabres hockey. Not visually speaking, though, in my opinion. But I remember always taking the slug logo and just like the one goal when you get a logo like that in the NHL is like, how can I make this passable? How can I make it awesome? So one thing about the jersey design with the slug, to me, the Buffalo Slug logo is fine. It can hold its own. To me, it was the jersey designs that kind of held it back. So I kind of wanted to play around with just a really sharp, super modern, but kind of having traditionalized elements to it. I think the real Buffalo Slug jerseys they were out there. They were very modern, and I applaud them for trying something different. But when in hockey, you might go a little too far sometimes. You need to hone in the traditional elements a little bit. So I kind of tweaked on like the upper arm striping that teams use, and also kind of giving it the arc that the logo kind of has from the eye and the horn, kind of playing around with that. And gray jersey designs, I just don't think get used enough. So, Sabres implemented silver, so I was like, you know what, let's roll with it. So I envisioned like that sparkly texture that Vegas use now for that gray. So I think that would that would look pretty sharp in my opinion.
Yeah, and I got to say too, you're probably a little ahead of your time on that, because we're seeing it a lot more, at least in the minors. I mean, we have a couple this year. We have the Whalers reverse retro that the Hurricanes did, but I know that the New Henderson Silver Knights, they have their gray jersey, and that's all they use, gray and white. And then I think the Ontario Reign just added a third jersey that's gray as well. So it's definitely becoming more common.
Yeah, it's an underused color, and it allows for a kind of a slightly more color clash for opponents, which I think should be utilized more as well.
And then the other Sabres concept I wanted to look at was this set, where you just really used blue and gold, right, and no white.
Yeah. Again, this is another concept that I always kind of come back to, and I was thinking, what could the Sabres do that was new, but still could give a retro feel? So taking that classic Buffalo script that on their 40th jersey, I think everyone loves. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say anything bad about it. And as I played around with it more, I just was like eliminating white and had that script on it and trying to utilize, in Buffalo anyway, that classic 3-stripe gold on the jersey from the originals, and just trying to utilize that in a unique and modern way, but also giving a vintage throwback vibe. So you have the larger shoulder stripes on it. You technically don't really have arm stripes on it either. So I really appreciated where I kind of went with that one. And in fact, I loved it so much, I ended up trying to get it made into a real jersey. Unfortunately, I don't like the way it turned out from the maker. On the concept, it's a square shoulder, but they put a round one, and the logo quality is just not good. But I keep it around because still to this day, it's a concept that I will always love. And I get some hate from it from other people, from other Buffalo Sabres fans, but it's one that if I could pick for a Sabres to ever pick up and use in an actual game, I would make it this one, the blue one specifically. I love it so much.
It's great, and it's even cooler that you actually have kind of one made, even though it's not quite up to your specs. I mean, how many concept artists could say they have their actual jersey in real life?
Yeah, exactly. It's nice. It's nice to have as a keepsake. I'm not showing it off, but yeah, it's always nice to look at. Just be like, you know what, give myself a pat on the back for that. Back
in 2008, Icethetics launched the IceHL, which is kind of our fantasy hockey league. Fast forward a few years to about 2016, we did some expansion and some rebrands and stuff. And one of the teams that we rebranded was called the Atlantic City Aces. We took logo submissions for that, including yours, which ended up being the winning design. I
was shocked about that, winning that one in general. But yeah, the IceHL, when I found out about that, I think that's how I found Icethetics to begin with. And it was just so cool to follow along, these fantasy hockey teams that I have no connection with, but I got like invested into the seasons that went on. So it was super cool to get involved, and just being involved in the process of submitting logos was, I remember even that day I was so excited for it, and I didn't tell anyone because, Mom, I'm designing this logo submission for this league that you don't know about, and you never will. And I remember spending a lot of time on that Atlantic City Aces one, and it really came through with the idea of the poker chip, that texture, that it really started with that. And I was like, okay, so where do we go from here? The spade is such a iconic imagery anywhere, not even just, if you're into poker or anything like that. So I kept going through this process of different icons and different meanings. And then, I added in the wings, to pay tribute to, airplanes and stuff like that. So I was just kind of throwing everything on the table. I was having fun with it. And I had this huge sketchbook laid out. I hope I could find some images. I don't know if I have the sketchbook still, but I remember submitting that and finalizing it in Illustrator and just being really proud. And then I saw what I was up against, and I was like, oh boy. I was like, well, I gave it a good shot. And then it got picked. I was shocked, but that was another high moment of my young career. It was kind of giving me confidence to, like, you can do this. You can make a logo as good as the rest. So it was nice to know.
And that's crazy, because that's something that I've been learning as I talk to more designers. I never expected Icethetics to do what it's done, which is it's given a platform to, sort of aspiring designers who maybe wouldn't necessarily get their work out there otherwise. And I think because of that, maybe in some small part, your mom may not have known about what the IceHL was, but I bet she knows about EA NHL games now, because just a few years later, EA comes to you and this logo ends up in a game that a lot of people know about.
Right, yeah. And there was one night where, at this point, all like the logos have been accepted and approved, and it's basically just waiting for the game to come out. And there was one day where I was like, oh crap, I never like told Chris or even asked Chris if this was even able or allowed. And like for like a night, I had like dread and like anxiety. I was like, what if Chris sues EA NHL because of this? So like I wrote an email to you, like the whole situation that happened, and you were like, holy crap, that's awesome. And I was like, whew, yeah, all right.
Well, that's the thing too. I mean, and I want every designer who knows this, whoever submitted anything or ever plans to submit anything, your work is your work. Appearing on Icethetics is sort of my way of amplifying it, because there is an audience for it. And it's just to help you get seen and get noticed and get your work out there. And if it can lead to something like this, like it did for you, that's amazing. So I think that's very cool.
Yeah, it was great. And the time you spend practicing all that stuff, I mean, it goes a long way. Just, it might not ever be physically used, but the amount of progress and practice people have went through because of this site, and probably have made themselves better designer, just a better person. It's just like, it goes unsaid, and you don't think about it much, but it's there too. A lot of progress has been made just from things that have never been seen.
Yeah, that's just it's amazing to me. And speaking of progress, I wanted to talk about another big project that you worked on in your senior year of college, the Houston Bulls. Talk about this one.
In college, this is the project every graphic designer as a freshman is looking forward to, the big senior project. They rent out a huge art exhibit space, and you basically have full reign. You make a business or rebrand a business, and you basically just put on this huge display. And so from freshman year, I knew exactly what I was doing. I was making a hockey team. And so the time finally came, and the big decisions had to be made, who I was doing, what city. And I remember thinking at the time, in a few years, no one's going to even think about this, and most people might not. But for me, it was a huge deal as a designer, just growing and learning, and seeing where I am now, even just knowing that the drive that I had and the ideas that were flowing through my mind. It was great knowing, what was there, the potential that I had. So, like the primary logo, yeah, like 2 years later, I'm like, okay, I got a little too close to the Chicago Bulls there. I should have made some executive decisions there, but it did its job, and the whole process was fun, from the logos to getting the jerseys made, putting together tickets and posters for the event. It was so fun. And yeah, I look back now and think, oh man, look at that. I could have done that so much better. But in a way, you just got to leave it and just, admire what you did. And I knew like, okay, this is what I want to do. Like I picked the perfect career decision for me.
This project sort of confirmed to you that you were going on the right path. You wanted to work in design in hockey. And, not long after that, you end up with a team in the NWHL.
Yeah. That was really fun and a really cool learning experience, not just as a designer, but a whole new league. I knew of the NWHL because the Buffalo Beauts obviously playing in Buffalo. But at that point, I kind of lightly followed them on social media. But one day someone kind of pinged me on Twitter that they were looking for a graphic design intern. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm applying for sure. That would be fun. And intern may have not been the best word. It was unpaid, but I was the only designer there. So everything from the goal graphics, the game day graphics, in the game day programs, posters, their championship banner from the season before, having a hand in all of that and kind of being a part of the photography for the season. It was so new and I was frightened every day decisions I was making because I was the designer, but I still was kind of really early on, didn't know much. So being able to do all of that and seeing it come and seeing like my first things being used and handed out to people was surreal almost. And later that season, the Beauts ended up getting bought by the Pagulas, who own the Bills and Sabres. So for a little stint there, I actually was kind of part of the organization in a little small connection, and I was like freaking out about it. So that whole season, one season, it made my love for design even more. But to be able to find another passion in another hockey league and learn more about that was also just a great experience. It really made me so much more connected with my work because I ended up caring so much about that team, and they ended up going to the championship game. Unfortunately, they lost, but that whole season, definitely a year I won't forget. I still have the signed little poster that they gave me before the championship game, which I thought was an incredible gift. I wasn't getting paid or anything, but them just handing me this signed cardboard cutout of the logo was all I needed. I was like, yep, sold.
I know there's not much you can talk about, but anything you can say sort of in general terms about your work with the Sabres.
Yeah, so the Sabres are under one kind of whole family called Pagula Sports and Entertainment. So in doing work for the Buffalo Bills, the Buffalo Sabres, Rochester Americans, Buffalo Bandits, Rochester Nighthawks, and then a whole bunch of other, different restaurants and other things they own. So it's like a bunch of dream jobs compacted into one, which is some days it can get overwhelming. Some days I have to sit back and just realize like, I'm here. I'm where I wanted to be. And it's an incredible feeling. So yeah, I think I got that in early 2019, I believe it was. And oh boy, it's been a wild ride, especially this last year, learning so much that you'd never even think of as a designer, right? Like in 2014, 2013, when I'm designing and sending in concepts to Icethetics, just knowing what designers are doing in the sports world things you never see, things you never experience as a fan of another team. It's just, it's crazy what goes into the operations. But, I'm here learning every single day. Each new day, there's a new task to be fulfilled. And there's always that small piece of anxiety that creeps up. You're unsure, but you get by. The new things that you're uncomfortable with always end up being the things that you end up loving. So it's a great experience, and incredibly lucky to where I am. And hopefully that just means, bigger and better things in the future. So fingers crossed for that.
And on that note, thank you, Dylan, for being a part of the first episode of the Concept Spotlight. I hope we get a chance to continue to interview more and more designers who contribute to Icethetics. And thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the premiere episode of Concept Spotlight. My thanks again to Dylan Nowak. I'm looking forward to catching up with more designers in the future. Until then, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more. That's all for now. See you next time.